Hi all, the build I've got for you today is one of the most fun builds I have ever used in PvE. It offers incredible control of huge waves of enemies, lots of damage, and great close-up survivability. The Shattered King build. This build really revolves around being up close and personal with enemies and is phenomenal in Legend Onslaught, especially if you're pugging. With this build, you can handle full waves of adds by yourself with the amount of control you have just in your abilities and super. Honestly, the only weakness is long distance damage, which we'll make up for it with our weapon loadout. For our exotic armor, we're going to be taking Hoarfrost Z. This turns our barricade into a stasis wall that can slow and freeze targets. Also grants you and your allies increased weapon stability, range, and reload speed if you're standing behind it. It's a huge part of our build, and it revolves around us placing as many barricades as we can for control and survivability. Stats we're going to be focusing on for this build is resilience and discipline, so we can get our grenade back even faster, and our barricade. This helps to control and freeze targets with our barricade and defend if we need it. Same with our glacier nade. We'll be getting these back incredibly fast because of a couple of our mods like bomber and impact induction as well. For our super, we're going to be taking glacial quake, obviously since it's the only one we have access to, but what this super does is you summon an ice gauntlet. This allows you to slam the ground to send out a shockwave of stasis crystals that freezes enemies. You can then shatter these crystals by sprinting through the crystals or using your shiver strike, which is your charge melee ability, to shatter them as well. Guys, this is so good for this build. It's great for ad control, difficult ad waves. I can't tell you how many times it's carried my team through a difficult onslaught round because they don't have their supers, we're low on heavy or something like that, and this has literally saved us rounds, helps me get reses, helps me to secure objectives. It's fantastic, guys. So use it whenever you can, or save it for a difficult time when you know you're going to need it. For our class abilities, we're going to be taking Rally Barricade, but it doesn't really matter because it gets replaced with Hoarfrost Z, so we have a Stasis Barricade instead. For your jump, with whatever one you prefer, I like Catapult Lift quite a bit. We've got Shiver Strike for our melee, but it kind of gets replaced with one of our aspects. And then we've got Glacier Nade. This is essential to our build. It's a grenade that creates a wall out of stasis crystals to block damage and freeze targets, and then these walls can be shattered for damage. Super essential for this build, helps our survivability a lot and our control. For our aspects, we're going to be taking Howl of the Storm. While sliding, activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of stasis energy forward that freezes targets and creates stasis crystals. This is a really big part of our build. We'll be using our melee a lot, so you're not really using Shiver Strike hardly ever. You should be sliding and then using your charged melee to create that wave of stasis energy. This allows more crystals to be shattered for more damage. You can freeze enemies, you can freeze champions with this, you can block a pathway. It's super important. And then for our second aspect, we're taking Tectonic Harvest. Shattering a stasis crystal creates a stasis shard. This shard grants melee energy when picked up by you and your allies. You're picking up these stasis shards all of the time, so you're getting your melee back incredibly fast, which helps you get your grenade back with our mods and our class ability, so it works fantastic. These aspects together are a great combination. For our fragments, we're going to be taking Whisper of Rhyme. Collecting a stasis shard grants a small amount of overshield, which falls off after 10 seconds. Collecting additional shards adds to the overshield and refreshes the timer. This is really good, helps our survivability a ton, and it synergizes really well with our next fragment, Whisper of Chains. While you're near frozen targets or a frozen stasis crystal, you take reduced damage from targets. So they're just going really well with each other, and really both of them are essential to surviving with this build since we're up close and personal a lot of the time. Next up is Whisper of Fissures. Increases the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. We're shattering crystals and frozen targets all the time. This leads to way more ad clear and a lot more damage. And then Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. This just plays into getting our grenade back faster, which helps our melee get back faster, and our barricade works very well. These fragments are awesome. For our weapon loadout, there's a couple things that I really recommend, but it's really open to whatever you guys enjoy. This synergizes well with this build, but I would highly recommend Gjallarhorn. This thing is gross. If you don't know what this does, rounds fired split into tracking cluster missiles upon detonation. This thing is fantastic for clearing a lot of ads, dealing with really difficult waves, and doing a lot of damage in boss rooms. I'm not kidding. If you guys didn't know, this weapon is super gross right now in Onslaught. Highly recommend it, and it makes up for the only weakness in this build, so I would recommend Gjallarhorn. If not, you maybe use another rocket launcher. Rocket launchers are really good boss waves. So I'd recommend this, and then I'd really recommend having a stasis weapon, obviously with thermodynamic mod that we have on our helmet, but having one with Headstone. If you guys don't know what Headstone does, Headstone, Precision Final Blow spawn a stasis crystal at target's location and improves stability, but it's really freaking nice, guys. It just spawns the stasis crystal. It works great with shatter damage, plays in great with our build, stasis crystals. I would recommend that. You don't have to, but I would recommend it. So what I'm using a lot of the time is this pulse rifle here. It's craftable. I'd really recommend using it with Headstone. Works out really well. I've got P-Spawn here with Demolitionist. Works great for getting my grenade back. Fractithis, the shotgun, and then I've got Judgment here, also has Headstone, opening shot. It's okay, it's not a great roll overall, but I've used it a little bit. This build does work pretty good, especially if I need Unstoppable, because we got it from our artifact here. So it's up to you. So I liked this pulse rifle along with Forbearance. Forbearance is fantastic with chain reaction. It blows up all your crystals. You shoot it at it, blows all the crystals up. Does a lot of damage. But you could switch something up. I also liked using the Amit. A frick ton as incandescent, plays great with our artifact mods that we chose in backup, and then deliverance too, so that could work really well. So it's up to you guys, but again, I'd recommend having something with Headstone and Gallowhorn for sure. For our mods, let's start with our headpiece here. We're going to be taking Thermodynamic Siphon. This makes it so our solar and stasis weapon final blows create orbs of power. This works fantastic for the build that we're using right now. We're taking Powerful Friends. Collecting an orb of power causes nearby allies to increase their current armor charge by 1. Synergizes great with teams if you're pugging, especially if you are not pugging and you're playing with people you know. Really helps out their builds and stuff like that. I think it worked great with this build specifically. And then I'm taking Dynamo. This is awesome. Reduces super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. It's so good because we're using our barricade all the time on enemies. For our hands, we're taking Impact Induction, causing damage with a powered melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown. We'll be using our melee a ton, especially when slide and then you charge melee, freezing targets. So this is great for this. Focusing Strike grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a powered melee attack. Same thing, it's just helping get our class ability back as well. And then Momentum Transfer, causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee cooldown. So everything's playing in with each other. That's why using one ability, using the abilities as much as we can will help reduce the cooldown of others. It's fantastic. For our chest, we've only got a couple mods here. We're taking Charged Up, increases the maximum number of stacks of armor charge you can carry by 1. Works out great. And then melee damage resistance reduces incoming damage from combatants that are at point blank range. Honestly, you could switch this up a little bit, maybe get rid of Charged Up for resistance if you'd prefer, but this works out great. And melee damage resistance I highly recommend because we're up close and personal with this build quite a bit. Helps with our survivability a lot. For our legs, we've got Better Already. Your health begins to regenerate immediately after picking up an orb of power. Just great for healing and surviving if we need it. Elemental Charge. This is awesome. Super essential for this build. Collecting a Fire Sprite, Ionic Trace, Stasis Shard, or Void Breach, or destroying a Strand Tangle has an escalating chance to give you an armor charge. This is so good. Just more armor charges all the time, especially since we're picking up Stasis Charge constantly. And then Innervation reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power, and you are picking up a lot of orbs of power. We get our grenade back all really fast all the time. And then for our class item here, we've got Utility Kickstart. When your class ability energy is fully expended, your armor charge is consumed, and you gain class ability energy for each armor charge used. This is awesome. Love this so much. Really plays again well with this build. And then Bomber. We've got double of these here. Reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. So again, we're using our barricade as much as we can here to reduce our grenade cooldown and then our melee cooldown. It all kind of synergizes really well. All right, for our artifact perks here, we're going to be taking Piercing Sidearms, Unstoppable Hand Cannon, and Overload Pulse Rifle. Works great with the loadout that I'm using here specifically, but you can change this up if you want. I recommend probably having Unstop unless your team has it and they're dealing with it fine, or Overload. It can be difficult if you're dealing with Fallen specifically. You don't really need Anti-Barrier until you're getting on later in the rounds. They can be a little bit more difficult to kill, especially if you don't have heavy or a super or something like that for some of these enemies, but personally it's up to you. The big mods here, I'm just going to highlight them real quick. So Flame, Fiber, and Freeze. This combines our Solar Strand and Solar Stasis Siphon mods into one. Just really nice for depending on our loadout. We're using Stasis and Solar for this, and sometimes I'll switch around, but this works out great. But the other mods that really matter: Pillar of Ice. Defeating a frozen target spawns Stasis Crystals. Hail the Storm. Shattering frozen targets and stasis crystals deals increased damage. Shattering stasis crystals releases shards of ice that damages slow targets. These are fantastic. Really essential for this build. Helps it out like a ton for killing enemies, doing a lot more damage and slowing and more, just way more control. So definitely pick these two up for sure. I like Overload rocket launchers as well, deal Overload champions, and then I take Wish into Being. While our super is nearly fully charged, ability Final Blow spawns Orb of Power. Just more orbs of power, more armor charges. It's great for our team, great for getting our super back. Really, really enjoy this. If you're looking for other mods, I do like Kindling Trigger, Flint Striker, or Torch, and Razor Precision if you're using solar weapons, maybe like Sunshot. Or anything with incandescent is really nice too. Really synergizes well with this build. They're just fantastic mods, but you can kind of fill those other ones in however you like. The gameplay loop for this build revolves around controlling the adds with your barricade, glacier grenade, and your melee. Remember, because of our aspect, Howl of the Storm, we can slide and then use our charge melee to freeze enemies in a line in front of us. Thanks to all of our mods for this build, using any of those 3 things, your barricade, your grenade, or melee, you'll be getting the other back faster, so use them as much as possible. Make sure to destroy crystals for big chunks of damage and pick up stasis crystals to increase your survivability. Use your weapons as filler, and remember we've grabbed the stasis and solar siphon mod to help us drop more orbs, which helps us get our super back even faster. Use your super whenever you can, but on Legend it can be super beneficial to hold it on if you think a difficult wave might be coming or you'll need to handle it by yourself. You can do a great job covering for your teammates when they don't have their super abilities up or they have no ammo, so keep that in mind. I really hope you guys try out this build and enjoy it. I'll leave the dim link down to the build down below. Thank you guys for watching.